driving down a road and having thoughts that, I should just end it all. That's a weakness in your inner being. You're in a crowded room and you feel like nobody loves me, nobody cares for me. They patting you on the back, joking around with you, listening to everything you say, and you still feel like I'm not connected. That's a weakness in your inner being, that corrupt and broken part of you. It's also the most effective part of you. Because you can hit me in my body, you can hit me in my finances, but if you don't get to my inner being, you don't have me. And so Paul prays that you will be strengthened in your inner being. And he says in verse 17, so that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith. He may dwell. That's a word that they use for God dwelling in the temple. Christ may dwell in your heart. And for those of you who are not followers of Christ, it may seem outrageous that God would dwell inside of people. I'm here to tell you that when you are in those places where you feel all alone and you want to drive off the road and you do everything right, and at the end of the day, you still have that emptiness, that's a God-shaped hole in your heart. And you could try to fill it with success. You could try to fill it with money. You could try to fill it with people. But only God can fit there. Only Christ can dwell there. He says dwell. He's not talking about checking into a hotel. You notice in a hotel, everything's nice. They got the pillows. I mean, in a good hotel. I've been in some dumps, man. They got the pillows laid out for you, the soap and the shampoo. It doesn't look like anybody's been there. That's not what he's talking about with dwell. He's talking about something that's lived in. I used to go to some of my friends' dorm rooms, and, you have piles of clothes all on the floor, pizza slices on top of the clothes, and you look and you go, oh, did that olive move? That room is lived in. It's being influenced, pervaded, governed by another being. Paul is saying that your hearts need to be influenced and pervaded and governed by Christ, by the one who knew of this relationship with the Father, the one who continually led a life of dependence on the Father. Jesus wasn't stressed because he had his Father's pleasure. He had his Father's affirmation. Jesus wasn't worried about what everybody said about him. They had a lot to say about him. But he really didn't care because he had the love of the Father. And so Paul says that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith. And then he says, I pray that you being rooted and established, that you would strike up roots like a tree. You ever notice a tree, you got to have, a tree has to have 2 to 4 times. The roots have to be 2 to 4 times the size of its diameter for it to be really rooted. Deep, deep roots. Rooted and grounded. A foundation has to be laid. That's what grounded means. To have a sure foundation in what? Notice he doesn't say in Bible knowledge. That you being rooted and grounded in how much you know the Bible. That you being rooted and grounded in how many times you go to church. That you being rooted and grounded in how well you can sing. No. He says that you being rooted and established and grounded in love. Because at the end of the day, if you don't have the Father's love, life is empty. You're still looking for that pleasure, for that affirmation, for that love from the Father. Rooted and established in love. And he says that you may have power He uses that word again, power. And this power to do something impossible. See, he's setting us up. The word means to do an impossible task together with all the saints. Every last person that believes in Jesus Christ has access, power, the ability to do this next thing. To grasp. There's a lot of times you can grasp something and not really use it. I used to get things all the time and not really use them. But this grasp is to take it, grab it, and appropriate it. Use it for what it was made for. That you may grasp how wide and long and high and deep. He's using words of measurement. How high and wide and long and high and deep is the love of Christ. And then he says, man, how wide and how high and how long and how deep is the love of Christ. That's an ocean of love. It's love, and he says it's love that surpasses knowledge. So I'm supposed to grab this and use this and not even truly understand it. I can understand why certain people love me. Friendship acts on that level. Hey, I called you, you called me. You gave me some advice, I gave you some advice. You used my phone, you used this, you used that. I gave you some food, I got you lunch. Marriage, same way. I can understand that. But I can't understand a God who dies for me when I don't think about him, when everything I do that's wrong messes up the whole fabric of the universe. When I want to run away from him, he still catches up with me. Says, no, you ain't going nowhere. I know you messed up, but stay right here in my love. It's high and wide and long and deep, and you'll never get to the bottom of it. It's love that surpasses knowledge. Surpasses knowledge because it's rooted in eternity. I remember, I think it was the Little Rascals. I forget, one of those kid shows said, oh, it's going to happen to you forever. And then the kid just sits there and, forever. Forever. We can't put our minds around forever. That's why we can't put our minds around this love, because from eternity past to eternity present to eternity future, the Father was loving the Son. And then that love was so amazing, it's so high, it's so wide, it's so long, it's so deep, that it went from eternity and spilled over into time and arrived one Christmas morning as a baby in a stable. Lived among us, stubbed his toe just like us, had to deal with messed up family just like us, had to deal with people that just didn't get it just like us. Then he did something that you couldn't top Jesus if you tried.